Tell me what you did at Kansas that was it's yes, we all have failures. We have to take a step back to be able to take two steps forward. Tell me specifically what was it that you did at Kansas that had that kind of outsized impact, and we'll go further down the rabbit hole
Sure,
on the taking risks, because I'll definitely want to segue into that piece.
absolutely. Probably the thing that the biggest game changer in the organization was in 2010. I was watching the Today Show, plug in there for NBC right now. Well, I did the Today Show, and Demi Moore came on the show one Tuesday morning, March 1st. How do I remember these things? Because it was so monumental and in the journey of the Kansas Foundation. Watching Demi talk about the Pepsi Refresh Project, and it was what Pepsi was doing in lieu of doing Super Bowl ads. They were going to give 13 or $12 million in a year's time to nonprofits that were doing something refreshing. And you could apply to get a grant, and you had to be a part of this voting process. So I'm watching this going, man, this is something that could really help us. There were two grants for $250,000. So I went to the office, set up the paperwork, applied that afternoon, and they said, well, you've already missed the cutoff for March, but you know what? We've got you in for April. So during that period, we didn't have a Facebook page. We didn't have an Instagram page. We didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't really even have a database at that point because we're so young. And yet it's like, it wasn't, I don't think we can do this. It's like, we're going to do this. But then I'm like, okay, I'm competing against New York City and Chicago and LA. I mean, how can we do something so big and we're so small? It's about gathering the volunteers, um, the um, the guerrilla marketing aspect of getting people to believe in your cause and doing things on your behalf. And people got so excited about voting that we went from 287th place in the poll that month to number one 10 days before the contest ended, and we were the first place at the end of April. $250,000 was something that truly was beyond what we really thought. My board thought I was crazy. And yet, you know, I take risk and I take calculated risk because it's important that you don't know if I don't live with regret. I always try to do the unthinkable. And by doing that, you can accomplish great things. Now, we had another thing that happened to us. The next day, May 1st, I get a phone call from the people that were administering the contest, Global Giving. And they said, oh, by the way, Mark, do you do animal testing? And I'm like, well, you have to do animal testing for cancer research in order for the first patients to be able to be treated in a human setting. And they said, well, Pepsi can't fund animal trials. And I'm like, whoa, this was on the application. And so what we did was, she says, well, if you can just rewrite your application and use it for something other than research, we'll still fund you. So we did things like I hired my first employee who was a project manager so he could manage this whole Pepsi Refresh project. And then we had money allocated for social media, for text giving, for Capitol Hill briefings, for conference attendance, and things like that, so that we could get our name, build our audience, and um, change the world. But that still didn't fund my research, which is what we're out to do. And so, what I loved about the contest was that so many people were so proud of the fact that they engaged their friends and got them to vote. And I had a gentleman call me from the middle part of the country, and he said, Mark, I just wanted to tell you, I'm so happy that you guys won. He goes, it was because of me. Because he goes, I told all my friends, and they told their friends, and they told their friends. He goes, if you guys probably wouldn't have won if it wasn't for me. I says, well, I have some good news and I have some bad news. He goes, what's the good news? I said, well, we're still going to get our money. I said, the bad news is I need $250,000 for research now. And this is where Gerald Panis wrote the book, How to Never Get a No. And how that happens is you have to know your donor. And I had been working with this gentleman for almost a year. And I was working him up for a larger gift. And he had given like maybe $50,000 the previous year. And I just asked him, I says, well, would you? He goes, what if I would give the $250,000 for the research? Would that help you out? I'm like, how did I just raise $250,000? I hardly even ask him. But it's putting that person in the right place at the right time. So that's one example of how we took something out of nothing and we're able to engage lots of people that then are now lifelong friends, lifelong followers of the work, and that's how it happened.